Ladies and gentlemen, for a session sponsored by the Accenture Amadeus Alliance, please welcome Amadeus's Rashesh Jethi, Fjord's Tobias Kruse, and Virgin Atlantic Airways' Daniel Kerzner in discussion with Skift's Rafat Ali.
How's everyone doing? Everyone still good? Everything liking it? Fatigue? There's a clue right there. So thank you everyone for still being here. We wanted to do this panel with Accenture Amadeus Alliance and Virgin Atlantic as part of this quick panel that we have on a topic that I actually have written quite a bit about. I wrote this article earlier this year that some of you may have seen if you read Skift. Let's have a quiz on how people read Skift. I'm kidding. Called Tech Backlash, which is happening in so many different ways in the world. And what effect does it have in the travel industry? The coming this was in Jan. The headline was the coming tech backlash, which I think we're in the middle of it at this point in so many ways. And the focus of this panel is a concept that Fjord, which is an agency within Accenture, Tobias is here from there, introduced as part of a research that they did, which is digital fatigue for consumers, customers. This is just true across all sectors. And what does it mean for the airline industry? And obviously the larger travel industry as well. So maybe you want to explain, Tobias, what was the research? How did you come up with the concept, and what are you thinking about?
Yeah, exactly. So, as you said, it has to do with a major shift in customer behavior that we're seeing, ultimately, one example is a backlash in the smartphone usage, or screen time in general, because there are more and more studies coming out that show the negative side effects of that. It's even linked to higher rates of depression, which is a little bit scary. And I think this feeling of that it might get too much is maybe something that some of you might have as well. And the effect that has for companies, and this is why we are also so interested in it, is that we see it basically takes digital, which was always at the center of customer experience, takes that a little bit back and brings physical back. So this trend is called physical fights back, which we name in our trends report. And so for companies, it's ultimately thinking about technology and digital much more as a digital enabler of experiences. And so we think that companies have to build services that are really deeply integrated into the physical world, which isn't easy to do, but a good example is maybe Wi-Fi on flights. We talked about this briefly just before we got here. And I mean, while many people might appreciate Wi-Fi on board, for those of you who might feel this, that it's getting too much technology and want to do a detox, what do you do for them, right? So look at Wi-Fi, maybe what other things can it enable for people who just want to sit back and relax a little bit on a flight, or might be concerned about their physiological or mental well-being on a flight. So I think that's an interesting perception shift that we're seeing that companies need to make.
Rashesh, from your perspective, looking at the airline industry, are you seeing the digital coming into the physical and becoming more invisible?
Absolutely. I think 15 years ago, we used to go online to escape the real world. And I think today we go to the real world to escape our online world. And airlines have, I think, one of the strongest physical footprints. A lot of digital brands are just that. They are digital, they are on the web, they're on the mobile. If you look at airlines, they have one of the largest physical footprints, and they have the best opportunity to actually address this issue. But what's probably important, and Daniel can probably share his perspective, is digital is not just focused at the traveler, but there's a lot you can do with technology for your employees, for the people that actually serve the traveler, and use digital technology to offer a better customer experience. And Virgin's well known, in fact, for their outstanding customer interactions, customer experience, but most notably for the team members, right, Daniel?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess as a little bit of background, Virgin Atlantic was created 30 years ago by our founder, Richard Branson. And his mission at the time was to create an airline that solved challenges that customers or passengers were having and giving them a better experience. And that sort of innovation spirit has kept through to this day, where we're always looking at how do we innovate, how do we do things differently. And Wi-Fi is actually a really good example. We were the first European airline to be Wi-Fi enabled across our entire fleet. After Wi-Fi, we were also, or earlier than Wi-Fi, we were the first to have in-flight entertainment, screens at all of the seats. We have a bar on board our aircraft. So innovation is very close to our heart. But Wi-Fi in particular is an interesting one because we have a group of our customers who love that they can stay connected when they're on board. But then there's another group of our customers who don't want to be connected when they're on board. Yeah. They want to enjoy great food or maybe watch some entertainment, have a good sleep. But for both sets of those customers, and this speaks on to something that you had mentioned, they're still benefiting from that connectivity on board because the crew are also using that Wi-Fi that's on board. So we've enabled our crew with tablets and with a program that we've called Platform to Serve, which allow our crew to get real-time information about the customers that we have on board, being able to use that to provide a personalized and elevated experience for those customers. And in the event of a service disruption or any type of issue like that, they're also able to use that connectivity to speak with people on the ground. Now, most of that is actually hidden for our customers. So unless you're actually on the Wi-Fi network, you're not seeing that that network is also powering the crew, who are really our superheroes, who are there to give you that great experience on board.
And so if you think about innovation and technology, I mean, if you go downstairs to the showcase, we have the Accenture Amadeus Alliance. We have some interesting showcases of how you can use virtual reality, or augmented reality is a good one, which is just now coming mainstream. But you can see using that technology, forget actually pushing it on travelers, but for crew members to use augmented reality to offer a better, more immersive customer intimacy, just to be able to recognize the customer at an airport or at the lounge or on board an aircraft, and to provide a level of personalization and experience that you don't get, just using what you have today. So it's always kind of keeping that in mind and saying, how can you actually enhance the customer experience using some of these newer technologies?
And I think where we're certainly going is it's not so much about the virtual reality, it's that space that you're in almost becomes your reality. So we heard earlier about different customers and different segments. Even the same customer traveling at different times might be looking for something else. How do we use technology to change the comfort of the seat that I'm in, or to change the lighting that's around me, to change the environment that I'm in? If we have 300 people or customers on an aircraft, you all might be looking for a slightly different experience. And so the technology should really be there behind the scenes to allow each customer to create an experience that's uniquely their own.
That's an interesting question that I always have for airlines and also other industries. How do you deal with that in particular, given that technology is changing and evolving fast, and we also see that customer needs are evolving fast, and you cannot change the airplane every 2 weeks.
Well, so one of the learnings that I've had coming in from 13 years in hospitality into the airline industry is it's a lot harder to do things.
Starwood, by the way, can I just say, I think there are like, how many people from Starwood here? There's like so many people from Starwood, it's like a whole fan club, I think, right here.
We could call the conference, Where Are They Now?
Right.
But one of the things that we do, and actually drawing from that background, is we're not looking at what other airlines are doing. And I think even back to Richard Branson in the early days, it wasn't about how do we be another airline, it was how do we offer something different. And so one of the things that we've started are what we call innovation safaris. And we actually go to cities like New York or London, where we're based, and we'll go into Soho, we'll walk around the streets, and we'll see how have other people solved these problems who haven't had the same limitations that we have on board an aircraft. And I think historically we've been pretty reserved as an industry. I think if you don't look at other airlines, but instead you look at what's happening on the streets of Soho in London or in New York, you'll find those trends. You'll find ways that people are using technology in different ways. The challenge is then, how do we bring that into the airline? And so one of the ways, for instance, that we do that is we take our clubhouses, our lounges, some of the best lounges in the world, but we'll use those spaces to pilot technology that eventually we want to put on board an aircraft. But if we saw something today, we can have it in our clubhouse next week. And then from there, we can find out what matters most to our customers. And then we build the business case to say, how do we put that on board an aircraft? And not looking to the traditional channels to do that.
Great example of a really customer-focused culture and work style.
Yeah, definitely.
But borrowing from other industries is a good one. So if you think about reimagining the actual aircraft cabin and the space, or even the seats, right? If you look at aircraft seats, really haven't evolved that rapidly. But if you look at the automotive industry and what they're doing, and if you look at some of the academic research, so not just looking on the streets of major cities, but if you look at some of the cutting edge research that's going on, hyperhaptics is a good example, where you're using ultrasound light and ultrasound waves to create, perceptions of actual touch and feel and even smell at some point. And if you can say taking those kind of approaches and actually incorporating them into the cabin to create a much, much more realistic and much more personal experience, that would be great. I know Virgin already does this, for example, with lighting, right? And there's a lot of technology.
Certainly one of the
again,
first
behind
ones,
the
I think,
scenes.
to focus very much on lighting.
I think whether it's lighting or three-dimensional sort of senses on board the aircraft, it's something we look at all the time. And again, it's something we can test tomorrow, next week in our clubhouse, but we want to be the first to have that on board. And being Virgin, I think we have a license to do those things. There's an expectation from our customers that we're going to be first, we're going to be innovative, but we always have to reinvent that, and we always have to be first in line.
All right, thank you. That was a great session. Thank you for
All
sharing.
right, thank you.